Hey, everything bass. How's everybody doing? Maurice from Los Angeles here. So my very first bass was a Gibson Ripper imitation by a company named Pinco. I bought this thing when I was 15 years old. It was about $200, which in those days was a lot of money, and I had to earn it. I worked in a dog kennel. And the mall that I got this from was in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, and it was about an hour away. But I was taken to that mall a couple times in the year prior to buying that, and I had fallen in love with a Fender imitation bass that they had there by the same company. And by the time I got there to buy the bass, that Fender imitation had been picked up by somebody else. But I couldn't leave the store that day without a bass. I was dead set, and the Gibson Ripper got the nod, and a Gibson Ripper imitation. Very cool. A really, really big bass. We never could find a case for it. Even checked with Gibson and the case that they put around their Ripper, and it was a little bit longer than the bass it imitated. So that was also part of the memory. I remember never having a case for that thing, but it was a great memory nonetheless. So the Pinco company made my childhood very, very special. Gibson Ripper. Imagine that. Actually, I still have a very fondness for Gibson basses to this day. I don't have any, but I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind having a Gibson here or there. All right, my friends, keep it groovy. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Hey everybody, Madora here, and I am sharing with you my first bass, which is right here. I just never got rid of it. I bought this bass probably in, I'm gonna go with 2001-ish, 2002, and it's a Fender Squier. I got the good old $300 Fender Squier bass pack where you got this bass, a small like practice amp, a cable strap, and the instructional VHS, which was awesome. And you know, it was kind of a match made in heaven. And this bass, you know, isn't necessarily what I bring to a gig these days, but I have the willingness to soup it up a little bit and make it a usable bass again. I want to put some new pickups in it and all that, but I still have it. I still enjoy knowing that, yeah, I've got my first bass, and learned how to play some Nirvana on this, learned how to play along to B.B. King records, Albert King, all the good stuff, and yeah, I hope you have enjoyed seeing my first P-bass. Awesome. Bye.
My first bass guitar was a Gibson EB3. Played it for 3 or 4 years and then quickly moved on to a couple of Fenders. Had jazz bass, which I regrettably tried to convert to a 5-string on the front edge of that whole movement. And had some P basses, Fenders, and maybe an Ibanez in there. And now I have a handful of Fenders and some quirky little things, and also an exotic 5-string. Played a Lakeland for a while, had all kinds of instruments, but yeah, Gibson EB3. Wish I still had it. I just looked them up, and I know they're getting a large amount of money now, so too bad I didn't keep it. All right, guys, later.
My first bass. I still have it, actually, although I loaned it to my my brother-in-law. He's interested in playing bass. So it was 1985, I believe. Was working at a guitar shop in Chico, California, and decided I want to be a bassist. And one of the sales guys there was also just one of the best bass players in town. And his name's Mike Zalkowski, and just had a great slap sound, and I really had so much respect for him. So I went over to him and said, hey, I'm going to buy a bass. Which one do you recommend? And he didn't hesitate. He went over to the wall and pulled down this BC Rich Eagle in J series neck through and started playing on it, and it sounded great, and I was sold. So I bought it, and I started gigging with it. And man, it was just great. It was perfect for me. I just loved the sound. I loved the look. But I was fortunate enough that in our guitar store was an amazing luthier repairman named Harrison Phipps, who's actually still doing great things in Davis, California. He's building great instruments, repairing great instruments. He's just one of the best in the world. And he took the bass, and we replaced the pickups and put a new bridge on there, copper shielded inside. He just did a bunch of mojo, and that bass is amazing. Sounds so good. And so I started gigging with it. Now the funny part is, that it was originally this beautiful pearlescent white. I mean, just a glimmering, beautiful white bass. But after like 2 years of playing in smoky clubs and bars and stuff, it's now a dingy yellow. And that ought to tell you something. But I love it, you know, and I'll never get rid of it. I may loan it out from time to time, but you know, that bass has a special place in my heart. Now that's the bass I took down when I started studying at MI, and so Musicians Institute, they required a headshot, you know, so they could put a face to the name and stuff. And I don't know what I was thinking, but this is the headshot I took. So as you can see, it's probably the most glorious thing you will see on YouTube, I'm gonna say this year. Just look at it, it's just glorious. Anyway, thought you guys might need a chuckle, so there's a picture of me with that beautiful bass. Thank you, Harrison Phipps. Thank you, Music Pro. Thank you, Mike Zalkowski. Thank you, Hal Race, for getting me started on the right foot. I really do love that bass.
Hi, Bass Chat family. This is Roy Vogt, coming to you from my teaching studio and home studio outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And the question this week is, what was my first bass? And I have it here. This is a 1970 Kalamazoo. As you can see, it's an EBO copy with kind of a Fender headstock. I got this when I was 14 years old. I worked all summer unloading plumbing pipe fixtures and water heaters and everything off my dad's loading dock there at his plumbing supply company. I took all my money from that summer and I went to Alts Music in Fort Worth, Texas, and bought this bass and a Gibson Thor amplifier that was tube powered with 210s, and I wish I had that amp. That was a cool amp. It would get the grind. It wouldn't get much volume, but it would get the grind. Anyway, as you can tell, I was a giant Jack Bruce fan. So, and a number of years ago, I took this back to my repairman, Greg Crockman at Classic Axe Guitars in Nashville, and we did a rehab on the electronics, and I've put some Pyramid gold flat wounds on it, and this is one of my 2 Jack Bruce basses. That's about as much treble as you can get out of that thing. It's plugged into my mixing console. I'll give you a little bit more volume. You can either get Jack Bruce or you can get Jack Bruce out of this bass. So it has its limitations, but I really, really love it. It's a part of my history. It's great to have the first instrument you started with just hanging on the wall in your studio. Every once in a while you can pick it up. Every so often I'm a Jack Bruce clone in a Cream tribute band, and this bass gets to see a lot of stage time. As you can tell, it's a one sound wonder, but it's my one sound wonder. Hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you soon.
Hey, Luis from Nashville here again. What was the first bass I ever owned? It wasn't this. This was my second bass. This is an Ibanez Soundgear SR800 that I popped in some EMG pickups and an EMG preamp after the fact. But the first bass that I ever owned was a Martin Stinger 4-string PJ from the Martin Guitar Company. You're probably familiar with that. But from what I read, the Stinger series of electric guitars and basses was manufactured by Samick in Korea and then sent over to the United States for Martin to check out and put their label on it and send out. Unfortunately, I do not have this bass in my possession anymore. I loaned it to a buddy of mine because I was starting to give him lessons, or attempting to, and even at that point I hadn't played very long, but I figured it'd be a good exercise to try to give somebody lessons, and I never got it back. So go figure. It was, I don't have any pictures of it with me, it was as I said, a PJ4, but it had this really cool burst finish to it. It was, the center of the burst was a silver sparkle, and the outside had kind of a white cream color to it. I was able to find some pictures online of it, so I'll just pop them right here, and you can see it in all its glory, but that was what my first bass looked like, the Martin Stinger PJ4. Again, great question. Thanks, Dale. Hope everybody's doing great and look forward to the next one. Take care.
Hey you guys, it's Mark Corradetti here. Dale, you asked what was your first bass, and I can remember implicitly what my first bass was. It was a put-together bass. We didn't have much money, and I had to kind of fend for myself on that. And there was it turned out to be a precision bass. It was a fretless of all things, but it was a no-name brand, and I had this body that I got. It had like DiMarzio precision pickups in it, and it was a fretless. It had like no lines either, and you know, I had that for a while. I've got a picture of it. I'll send that over. And I just thought it was a bass. You know, it was just great. I think I had that for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. You know, I took lessons on it and everything. But it was a great bass. It didn't have a brand name to it. It was just a put together Mark special. You know, I played the hell out of it for a while, so that's what we had, and so that's what it was. It was a copy of a Fender Precision fretless. So there you have it. That was my first bass. Thanks a lot, and see you soon.
Hello again. My first bass guitar was a red 4-string Yamaha P-Bass copy. And thankfully for me, there is no photographic evidence. I know some of my mates here have some photos, and I think that's awesome. I've never been much of a what you might call a photogenic individual. Cameras tend to break when they are around me, but no, I received the first bass when I was 9 years old. My uncle played the bass in church. I had been around music, and I'm one of those bass players who started off playing guitar. I was born into a very musical family, and going through some simple guitar chords, I reached F, and F was appropriate because I said forget it. But I could hear melody, and I could pick out rhythms on, single note rhythms. So bass became the ticket. And being 9 years old, getting my first bass, I don't have the photos that will make the humor at my expense, but I have a story. I believe I had my bass for about 2 years and decided, you know what, a fretless 6-string is the way to go. And I still do have the fretless 6-string. I have only ever used it for playing in church. It has never done any other type of gig or any other type of music. But the 4-string did not last long. Right after I got the fretless 6, I was able to part with that initial Yamaha. But because I don't have the photos and things, I will tell one more story. I didn't get my first Fender bass guitar until 2015, tail end of 2014. I've begun going to jams and playing in some small bands, weekend things, and I was hearing every week at the blues jam, oh, if you're going to play blues, you need a Fender 4-string. You need a Fender 4-string. That's the ticket. That's what you got to have. If you're going to play blues right, you need a Fender 4-string with flat wounds on it. fortunately, I'd become friends with a wonderful bass player, fantastic luthier, and just a great guy, Mr. Jonathan Holland of Holland Musical Instruments in Ackworth, Georgia. And so he said, look, I know they're giving you a hard time, like weekly waterboarding. I have a P bass that I'm willing to part with. How about we get you into that, and then we'll start talking and doing some research on what kind of bass it is that you want for the kind of work you want to do. So I got his P bass and immediately began studying and just learning right from the off all the wonderful and nerdy bass stuff that we all love. And that P bass became really and I still have it. It was given the name Mojo by Mr. Jonathan Holland because he used it for his audition for the blues artist Tinsley Ellis. He was Tinsley's bass player for a little over 4 years, and then he passed it on to me, and I just began reading up, because what I decided to do was kind of take a piece out of Lee Sklar's playbook. I wanted to have an instrument that no one would look at me with it and say there's something wrong here. I wanted that at the offset, everyone would be calm and relaxed when they saw me pull it out of the case, and yet be a fantastic instrument. With Lee, you know, he learned how to change his hand positions and get whatever type of tones he wanted or needed from just his hand positions, and using, you know, foam to get a deader sound, all those type of things. So I wanted to have an instrument that looked relaxing. Oh, it's Fender 4-string. I know what that is. I know how it's going to sound. And then when we actually start going, it just be a wonderful instrument. So I did research on bridges and nuts and all the nerdy stuff, and really made it my own. So my long story made short, my first bass was just a simple Yamaha P-bass copy. I jumped straight into the deep end of actually Mr. Steve Bailey's territory of 6-string fretless, and now I still have that, but I do my professional music with a 4-string done beautifully. So I make everyone relax, and then I still have a great tone, great sound, and have a lot of fun with my gigs. Alright, that's my bit for this week. I'm loving this. I hope everyone that's out there is enjoying it as well. Thank you so much for doing this with us. See you guys next week.